Jack, how have you been, mate?
Yeah, all good, mate. All good, mate. Rugby wise, I've had a good season personally. Obviously, it didn't end how we wanted it to end. Obviously, not making the playoffs. Yeah, it's a bit of sweet moment to be fair, but yeah, it's rugby league at the end of the day.
It is, mate. So we're going to go right back to where it started, and we'll get to where you're at to now in a short while. But
Yeah,
before we get stuck into rugby, mate, where was home for a young Jack and who lived at home with you?
yeah. So I grew up in Leigh, and I was at home with my brothers. Mum and dad split when I was pretty young. So yeah, I was at my mum's throughout the week, then my dad's at the weekend, and all I remember growing up was just loving sport and especially rugby league. For me, it was like being in school. I always loved PE and doing something physical, and I remember growing up in my primary school being in a class where there was all footballers, and I really wanted to go and play football. Going home to my mum and dad at the time, and like, right, I want to go play with all my new friends, play football. And my dad was like, no, right, wait, I'm taking you to rugby. Um, I remember driving down and like crying my eyes out. My mum was saying, just go and see it how it is. And I've said it before, like I've never looked back. And yeah, like I've got fond memories growing up. Obviously, being in my mum during the week, she wasn't really sporty. So on the weekend, it was always with my dad and going watching him on the Saturday, and then playing on my in my team on a Sunday, and watching my brother as well. So yeah, it was always sport and predominantly rugby league.
Right, mate. So has your household always been competitive? Are you and your brother quite
Yeah,
competitive with each
yeah,
other? Yeah.
yeah. So I've got an older brother. Um, and I've got a few younger brothers as well, three other younger brothers. But my brother, my Oscar, who's 24 now, so we're pretty similar age. So we grew up really close and very competitive. He's I wouldn't say I love the game of rugby league, and I don't think Oscar did. He was really good at it, and I joined when I was 4, and he joined back end of primary school, so pretty late. But anything, we was really close, and it could be on the out, could be playing outside or playing in the playground at school. We'd want to beat each other,
Yeah.
and but yeah, we was really close growing up, and he had his own journey, and obviously I've got mine, and we're still close to the day. So it's a good we've got a good bond.
Yeah, no, that's class, that, mate. So kicking and screaming, where was your first rugby league club, mate?
Leigh East, Leigh East.
Right.
Yeah, I remember, like I said, when my dad took me down, going there, and there wasn't an age group for me. So my dad was like looking for a team, and he would be like, right. I think I was 4 at the time or 5, but the age was just the year above, and my dad was like, right, you can play in this team. And I don't think anyone wanted to say no to my dad at the time. It's big tonguing, but
Yeah.
um, yeah, I played a year above, and that was till I remember around 11 or 12. And I remember my dad. I remember to this day, like my dad. We finished the training session, and I was like really good mates with everyone. Was really close, and my dad pulled me, and it was like starting from next season, you're not going to be in that team, and I just couldn't get my head around it. Because all my best mates, and my dad was like, well, you're getting they're getting a little bit too old now, and we want to create our own team. So, um, yeah, so we created our own team, and he was telling me it's going to be the best thing for you. And at the time, obviously, I'm losing all my best friends, and
Yeah.
but yeah, it was the best thing for me because we created our own team. Then went into our own league, and if I got even closer with those lads then. So yeah, it's I was at least all the way up to turning professional, and so yeah, it's a club that is really close to me, and one day I'd love to go back. And from my age group, I don't think I don't think there's many. I don't think there's anyone playing from my age group. But we had such a talented team, and it's just a shame that they've obviously don't play rugby anymore. But from back end of my career, I love to go back, whether that's coaching or playing myself. Because my younger brother Oscar, he's actually gone back this year playing. So that's something I'd love to go and do.
Yeah, no, I like that, mate. So around the age where your dad set your own team up would have been, we spoke briefly off camera, mate, like town team service area stuff. So do you
Yes,
remember the process around that and how it was?
yeah, yeah. So obviously growing up you play rugby for loving it, and around about 11, 10, 11, 12, it's kind of I'm kind of looking at, oh, like I'm starting to look at the professional game, and I played Wigan as a kid, so I love going watching them, and I'm thinking like, how can I be at that go at that stage? And there was me and another lad who in my team, and to this day he don't play anymore, but I still tell him he's one of the best players I've played with, and he just got lost in the system. But it was me and him who always got selected to. It was called Wigan Leigh Service Area. It was the first representative rep team that we played at, and it got all the best players from Wigan and Leigh. So that was around about 12 years old. So yeah, that was a really good experience because I only ever played for Leigh East, and I only played with that bunch of players. So to go into a team where I played against these other lads who were ready for that scholarship, I think it just made me hungry for more and hungry to take that next step in my career. So yeah, it was a really good time.
Now, mate, I've got a couple of questions spinning off from that. So one, what was you like at that age in a new environment?
Mm. Yeah, so for me, I'm still to this day. I'm a pretty shy lad, and I was back then. But luckily, the lad who I made the team with we trained together, so that made it a lot easier. And I remember from that first training session, it was at the time where like I knew everyone in the team because I played against them all, but I never knew them personally. It was probably the best thing for me to chuck me in a new team of players probably better than me, to try and get myself better, and obviously growing off the field as well. Because like I said, I'm a pretty shy lad off the field, but yeah, it was a good time for me, and yeah, I look back with it fond memories.
Good stuff. And standard of club rugby, mate. So would you have been playing against most of them lads every other week?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We
Yeah.
had my age. I feel like it was a really good standard. We played the likes of Wigan St Jude's, Leigh Miners, obviously the rivalry there, and Wigan St Pats were really good. Obviously, they're really good in most ages there. Um, and we've played against Halton Hornets, Widnes team. They were really good. But yeah, the standard was really good, and I remember when me and my mate was the only Leigh lads in that team. It was full of all like Wigan St Jude's, St Pat's, Ince Bridge, and we was like kind of the enemy coming in. But yeah, it was all fun once we played in the same team.
Yeah. Was there anyone ever having a word, mate, asking you to shimmy across or out? Or
To go into another amateur team?
yeah,
No, not really, because
oh,
my dad was a coach, so I never really thought about like leaving. And
yeah,
for me, I just want to enjoy. I wanted to enjoy it, and like I said, I was with my best mates there, and we was one of the top teams, so I didn't feel like I
no
didn't.
reason to
There's
move on, really,
there
do
was
you?
no.
Yeah,
It wasn't like I'm one of the best players in one of the worst teams. Like we was near the top of the table every year, so there was no
right.
need for me to leave. And
Yeah,
yeah, I never really thought about it, to be fair.
fair enough. And how was that, even at a young age, mate? How was that Lee Derby?
Oh yeah, we loved it.
Was
Like
it?
it was a
Yeah,
talk of our school. We felt like every week that we had it. And again, Leigh Miners, they had some really good players who got lost in the system. And it was funny. Like there was one person from Leigh Miners who was in that Wigan Leigh service area with us. But like me and my mate got friendly with him, so everyone else were battering each other, and we'd actually be like kind of friendly with him. But
yeah,
yeah, It was at the time where like I felt like it was a proper rivalry. Like you wouldn't speak to them during the week, and um, if you lost, you wouldn't want you'd what go straight home. You go straight home, and you'd be fuming. And if someone asked you on the week during the week in school, "Oh, how'd you get on?" you try and like shush them away.
Yeah.
But yeah, I loved it, and we as a team we proper bought into it, like the club. And I remember watching my dad in back end of his career when he went amateur, and there was a massive rivalry there. And we'd watch them on a Saturday if they played against Leigh Miners, and we might be playing the day after if the fixtures ran, and we'd be like, I can't wait for tomorrow now. Like it was so exciting, and I kind of miss that feeling because obviously I'm a Leigh lad, and I've kind of grown up in that in this area and in that team, and it meant something to me. Do you know what I mean? So yeah.
That's class because that is what it's about, mate. Fundamentally, yeah, you have gone on and done really well for yourself, and you've still got a bright future in the game as well.
Mm.
But you play firstly because you love it, Jack, don't you?
Yeah, 100%.
Everything else is secondary, and it does matter. But if you
Mm.
didn't love it, you wouldn't play.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I could have easily just not played because, like I said, in my primary school, no one played rugby. Like rugby was banned in my primary school. We just played football, so I could have easily gone down that route. And like credit to my mum and dad who kind of made me go into the rugby because they knew it was a potential path for me. And um, yeah, it's a sport that I still love to this day. Like every single weekend, um, I watch a game, and I love the NRL, and obviously there's a game on tonight, so I can't wait for that. And I remember like obviously growing up, obviously being in that primary school and the high school, there was all football fans. Like I'm a big United fan, unfortunately at the moment, but
Oh, I
um,
am, mate. Yeah,
but like I'd want to be talking about the rugby instead because I could literally watch any game of rugby. But when it comes to football, I can only watch United kind of thing, or like with the big games. But
yeah,
when it comes to the rugby, like I'm a geek of it. Obviously, and being a halfback, I love to break down games. And there's sometimes when we're watching the game with my missus, and I want to wind it back because a play as unfolded. I'm like, do you know why that's happened?
yeah.
And things like that.
Analysing everything and that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So yeah, it's I'm a geek to the game. To be fair.
So is that something you'd really look at post career then, mate? If it's not coaching a whole team, like maybe being the word I'll use is like I'm not trying to blow smoke up your ass, but like a halfback specialist or a playmaker
Oh
specialist,
mate,
would that be something?
yeah, 100%. That's like my dream job to be an attack coach. I the job I do at the moment, I coach in primary school, so I'm kind of like building that rep. And but I love me personally. I love to go into a team and just focus on the attack because I feel obviously that's my go-to. And to be fair, I don't see myself doing anything other than coaching. I feel like I've learned a lot in the game. I've done. I've played in some big games. Obviously, I've not gone to the heights yet, but I feel like, especially in the community game and my path, what I think we'll touch on soon. But in my path, I feel like a lot of people could have got lost to the system, like I keep saying. But I feel like I can really help in that situation.
Yeah, and that's the way the game's going, mate, and it's going
Mm,
a bit like rugby union. We're going to have specialist departmental
yeah,
coaches, aren't we?
yeah, I think that's how it's going to grow.
Yeah,
Obviously, when growing up, you'd have probably you'd have your head coach and one other coach, and even then, the head coach would do everything. But now you see teams with five coaches, and probably looking from the outside, you're like, why are you doing that? But when you're actually in the game, you're like, your head coach probably doesn't hardly do anything during the week, as in coach wise on the field stuff. I know at the moment at Sheffield we've got an attack coach and a defensive coach. So yeah, in the future, that's something that I'd love to do. To be fair.
stuff, mate, and we will kick on with you. But when we're talking about getting lost to the system, mate,
Mm,
when because there's lads my age that done exactly the same as, and it'll forever go on unless we do something about it,
yeah.
won't it? But it's, do you think the academy system can like do a dual reg with community clubs. And just because they're not ready at 18 doesn't mean they're not going to be ready at 22, 23, or 24, does it? So
Mm,
there's definitely a bridge that can be made there. I think that's what you're getting at. There's lads that were more than capable,
yeah,
but life takes them somewhere else, maybe, or interest change. But it can
yeah,
soon come back round, Jack, can't it? And I think
yeah,
that's where the gap is, isn't it?
yeah, 100%. I think the RFL need to get that reserve system going. Like you said, not everyone's ready at 18, 19, 20. I know I weren't.
Yeah.
And that's been my path. And like I said, there's been loads of people lost to the system because they're not ready at 18. Like when I was coming through like the academy stage, if you weren't ready in under 19s, you'd either go to League One or go back to amateur club. And
Spit you
um,
out, don't they?
yeah, and it's
Yeah.
like a lot of people probably leave because of the ego. They don't want to go back to the amateur game. So I think having that reserve system, it looks like they're trying to do something, but I
Yeah.
don't think it's not priority at the moment. But yeah, I think it's a good idea to dual reg them with like I think at the moment Leigh Leopards do it with Leigh Miners or Leigh East. I know they send a few of those people who don't play there, so it's something that I think the game needs because they need to keep breeding players and uh, places like Leigh and places like Widnes. There's loads who go elsewhere who don't play anymore and or either get picked up by other teams. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
Leigh and Widnes have I think they've got loads of players who are capable to play Super League. So yeah.
And if nothing else, mate, it filters down and the pyramid just gets stronger, doesn't it? If it's not
Mm,
national conference, it can be North West Counties Premier or divisional premiers, can't it? So,
yeah.
right, so back to you then, fella. And how was the transition into high school for you, Jeff? Did rugby help with that?
Yeah, massively because like again, I was very sporty as a kid, and I had a close bond with a like we had like a few of us, and we went into high school together, and the other lads who I played rugby with, they came into high school who I didn't really go to primary with, so yeah, I went to Lowton High School. It was a really good school, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. But like I said, like I preferred learning and physically doing something, and so I excelled in PE, and I loved going competing. I did a lot of all the athletic stuff, and anytime there was a team, I want to be in it. We had a really good football team, and high school was allowed a rugby team, so there was me and a few lads who played at Leigh East, and then the rest of the team was all footballers. So we were trying to explain to them how to play the game. And again, we had a we had a the rest of the high schools were a lot better than us because we played the Wigan high schools, and obviously they were obviously full of rugby players. So
What would that have been like John Fisher in it, which is
yeah,
like the
yeah.
Wigan conveyor belt and
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So they was always the best. We couldn't at the time probably we couldn't really compete because we was I say 4 or 5 rugby players with the rest of footballers. It was enjoyable because then the footballers can actually have a game of rugby and they can kind of appreciate how hard it is. But yeah, to be fair, like any sport I'd want to be in, and yeah, I loved it.
So was school really your opportunity to stay involved with football?
Yeah, yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Because I remember one time going back to primary school, I went around my friends and he was like, "Oh, I've got football training tonight." I was like, "Oh, right, okay, I'll come with you." And then played. I trained football, and the coach was like, "Right, okay, when you go home tonight, tell your mum that you want to come and join." So I went home and told my mum, "Oh, mum, I went football training tonight, and they want me to stay." I was like, "Right, no chance." Like, but yeah, I'm glad that happened. But
Yeah.
yeah, but like you said, being in high school, it gave me a reason to go and play for some football, which growing up, we all loved around my area. But the main thought process was always rugby, and I'd think about during the week who we're playing on the weekend, and I'd be excited. If that game got called off on the weekend, I'd be absolutely
Oh,
gutted.
you'd be gutted, wouldn't you? Yeah,
Honestly,
yeah.
like my dad would wake me up on a Sunday morning saying it's been called off, and I'd be in tears. So, yeah,
I don't know about yours, mate. When I was, like I said, I'm a fair bit older than you, but really, there was only ever Liverpool, Everton, United, the odd City fan. There
yeah,
wasn't
yeah,
like
yeah,
there's
yeah,
Tottenham everywhere, there's Arsenal everywhere, isn't there? There's
yeah,
like it's mad, but
yeah,
yeah, so like bikes upside down, there's footy nets, and
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Like
you didn't go in for your tea in case you weren't allowed back out and all that,
exactly, yeah. Like
innit?
I always laugh with my mate saying, "I'm glad we went through high school as United being the best team." Because I don't think I could have done it at the moment, like how
Like
bad we
no,
were. Because that was the
like
talk. So yeah,
yeah, like imagine like last night, mate, team we've probably grew up watching
yeah.
going 2-0 up and then you end up drawing 3-3. It's
Exactly,
nuts.
exactly.
It's
So yeah,
nuts.
I'm glad I went through high school and of being in that Fergie era. So
Therefore, plus the stadium weren't a waterfall when we were at school, mate, was it?
yeah,
So what rep opportunities did you have at high school, mate?
yeah. So obviously that service area, I think we did 2 years there, and then we did something called regionals.
Yeah.
Um, so that was a little bit bigger than the Wigan Leigh area, where I played. We actually trained in Widnes actually at was it Wade Deacon?
Where Deacon?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
we trained at that high school, and that was the first time where I'm thinking like this is the these are the best people, like the best kids in this big area. And I remember like rocking up. I think we trained every Wednesday, so we'd rock up every Wednesday, and there'd be probably 25 of us, and you knew the standard was raised again. And but yeah, again, really enjoyed that time. Again, it made me realize that right, I want to do this. Like I need to. This is where I need to kick on. I'm given the opportunities, and now I need to like take them.
Right. So would that have been in the pitch in the running track, would it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. All
yeah,
right.
yeah.
So when you're in and around that, mate, are you still are you always been an halfback, Jack?
So obviously with my dad was playing, he was a prop, but I always think he wanted to be a halfback because he always pushed me to be a halfback. But I remember growing up, my favorite player was Jason Robinson. So that straight away, I wanted to play in the wing. My dad was like, "No, you're playing as a halfback." So then, yeah, I played as a halfback, and I think it was about 15, 16. I think someone got injured playing fullback, and my best attribute is running. So they put me at fullback, and I did really well there. So I've always shifted between half and fullback, but like playing in the rep side, it was always halfback.
So now you brought that up, mate. How was it seeing the game differently? So for viewers and listeners that might not get it, mate, your fullback's probably an extra halfback now, but also running at broken field, and
Yeah,
timing's key in it, mate. So
massive.
how
Mm.
did you find viewing the game from a 6 and a 7 or a 1?
Yeah, so like I said, like being a geek of the game, like as soon as I went to fullback, I was on YouTube and I looked at the time. Billy Slater was the best player in the world, and I think he was probably one of the first players to um, the first fullback to bring that halfback at the fullback kind of thing. It utilized his passing game so good, and now trying to replicate that on the weekend. And obviously Jared Hayden at the time, I love watching. But yeah, I don't yeah, like you said, for the people that probably don't know the game, it's a lot different for me. Like probably people might look at the fullbacks and not think anything defensively, but I think defensively fullbacks you need to be really good with the numbers and knowing where people should be, knowing what position should be where. And but as halfback, you need to be on in an attack. You need to be very dominant, and as a fullback, kind of you have that free roll kind of thing, which as a kid I loved. I
Yeah.
loved it when um, they kick the ball to me and there'd be so much space in front of me. And like I said, I think that's my best attribute is running. So I think I really excelled in that position. But for me, I love taking control of the game and I love having the ball in my hand. So I think Halfback is where I stayed most of it. But yeah, I love playing both positions. There's pros and cons in both, like, but obviously being a halfback, you need a bit more tackling. But as a fullback, obviously, like I said, you need to be a really good communicator and you need to know your numbers. And so, yeah, it is different, but in a way, in attack, there's a bit of similarities as well.
And you did, mate. You've led me nicely onto what I wanted to ask you anyway, and is communication. So how comfy was you telling people what to do and where to be?
So, like I said, I was very shy, and I am still to this day. So going from Leigh East, where I was my best mates, I was like the main halfback there, and everyone knew who I was. I went into regionals where I'm not kind of the main player anymore, and kind of looking back, I wish I was more out there because that I might have excelled a little bit more. I might have taken a different path, but um, it's it's massive. You need when I was a little bit younger, obviously coming into the professional game, I came into teams where there was people a lot older than me, and I kind of shied away from that. But I feel like I'm 27 now, so I'm coming into the kind of my prime of my career, and I need to not be that shy kid anymore. So yeah.
Yeah. Right. And did rugby union ever cross your path at school, mate?
No, not really. There is a League Union club, but again, I would just all focus on league. It's it was better to watch. I've never really played it. I went down to a training session. My cousin played rugby union, so I went down to a training session with him, and they wanted me to stay, but my dad was like, "No, just focus on league." So I did, and yeah, it's still. I'd like to have played it just to see how I would have been and what position I would have been. I think fullback in rugby union would have been a good position for me. A lot of freedom, being able to kick, but yeah, you never know. But yeah, I was always focused on league.
It's fair enough, mate. And was scholarship a thing for you, mate? Was you offered one? Did you go down that route?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So straight off the back of regionals, it was I think I was 14 at the time, and that's when obviously clubs start to look, and it was actually going into the try. They still have service area at the time as well, so I was in the trials of service area, and a Warrington scout came to my dad and said, would he want to come and trial out for us? So I did, and yeah, that was a really good 2 years of my life. I was 14 to 16, and again, going from um, one of the main players in our amateur team to being one of the old Leigh lads in a Warrington team was like it was tough, but again, it was something that I really wanted to do. Obviously, trying to kick on, to try and get into that professional. So
And so travelling that wise, mate, was it tricky? Was it hard to juggle school and club rugby with Warrington, or were they
yeah,
understanding of it?
yeah, there was understanding. It was like it never really impacted school, but we trained. I had to miss a training session with my amateur team Leigh East to go to Warrington. The first year was a few of us. I think it was three. But obviously our parents took us there, and in the second year there was only two of us. Um, but yeah, it was really good. Like it was the first time where it was like proper professional. Like we trained where the 15 train, you seeing pictures all over the wall, and I think it was. I think they just come off the back of the winning Challenge Cup at the time, so we had pictures of the Challenge Cup. So it was. I remember like being in the gym and looking around and being like, right, like I want this, um, and yeah, it just made me work harder for it.
Yeah. And do you know why you did it in the milestones, Jack? Is it like reassuring to you, mate? Or were you
Mm.
confident anyway? Even though you were shy, you can still be confident, pal, can't
Yeah,
you?
yeah, exactly. Like I knew I was, I knew I was one of the better players at my amateur club, and I wanted to be there and to get in these rep teams. And like to be honest with you, I as a kid, I don't know why I thought this, but I always thought, oh, I've kind of probably the status because of my dad, and I kept on getting picked into teams, and um, people might have said that in the past, and I might have believed I believed it at the time. And I'm like, well, am I? I'm a here just because of my dad. And when I got picked into Warrington, that was like, right, it's this a team has come in from not my area, and they want me to play for him. So kind of that time, it was like, right, I kind of belong here now. So yeah, it was a very good experience. That.
Yeah, I imagine that's tricky as well, mate, because you, you, your body's changing, your mind's changing. You're starting to have to make decisions for yourself, i.e., signing scholarship papers,
Mm,
um, sticking around at your club if you think people are saying you're just getting picked because of your dad. You know
mm.
what I mean? You are starting to become a young man, mate, aren't you?
Yeah, yeah, that's it. And like my dad was our one of the coaches at Leigh East, and I always knew I was one of the better players there, but I always thought I needed to work a bit harder, and
Yeah.
my dad knew that as well. Like, um, he'd make sure that I'd be doing the little things right. Maybe that someone might not be doing. It might be extra efforts. It might be charge down kicks, and that's what I've always built my game on is the extra efforts. And you're seeing people lying on the floor if they're tired. Like for me, if I'm always going to be on my feet, and I know that's a mental win. Like in training, if we're doing fitness, my dad when we was younger, my dad was always doing fitness with us, and he'd tell us to walk about if we're tired. And we've just finished a conditioning block. Like there'll be lads being on the floor. My dad was like, "No, get up and we'll walk around." So that's always stuck
Body
with me.
language is key in it, mate.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's it, and that's always stuck with me. No matter wherever I've been, and I've
yeah,
always thought like after we've done a conditioning session, I've always had my dad at the back of my head like, "Stay up, like you be
yeah,
people on the floor, like you're better than them now." So yeah,
yeah.
he's been a big character in my career so far.
Yeah, and it set you up, mate, because they're all minimum standards when you're at the level
Mm,
you're at, aren't they? But
yeah,
as a kid, you don't understand that, do you?
exactly. Yeah, you'd be like, well, I don't really need to put my foot over the line there. But those are the 1%ers that gets you as far as you can get, as far as you can get. So, yeah, I'm very grateful to have learned like kind of like the hard way from my dad there.
Yeah. So what happened at the back end of Warrington, mate? What was the discussion there?
Yeah, so I remember, so in the team that I had, um, it was the same team as Harvey Levette. So he's playing at
Right.
Huddersfield at the moment. We had a
Yeah.
really good team, um, and I just kind of knew the last, say the last month or two, I kind of knew I weren't going to get an academy contract, because you'd see all the lads you'd see them chatting together, and you'd hear whispers or what have you been offered, and I'm thinking I've not even had this conversation yet. And I remember on a weekend they wanted to have a meeting with us, and a few other players were going, and I knew those players weren't going to get a contract because I always thought I'm good enough to be here, um, but I didn't know if they, because in my position at the halfback there was another a Warrington lad, so I thought right, I think they're going to pick him over me, which
Like you'd
and
have even just a 10% credit in the bank or something, just a
yeah,
little
yeah.
swing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So they offered him the contract, and I remember having a meeting and going in with my dad with the coaches, and it was like they said something like, yeah, he's a good player, but we're just going to send him back to the amateur game. And looking back, it was probably the best thing for me. I'm a big believer in everything happens for a reason, and
Yeah, I am.
um, so yeah, I went back to my amateur club, and I remember my dad had to go somewhere on the same day, and um, he bumped into Mickey Iron, and he must have told Mickey at the time, and Mickey come over to me, had a chat with me, and he was like, "Well, forget about that. Like everything happens for a reason." And he used Chris Hill as as his as someone he said, and he was like, "Look at Chris. He's come from the amateur game into Leigh, and then it was at a time where he just signed or had a few years at Warrington, and he was kicking on." And so I've always had that in the back of my mind of how everything happens for a reason. And off the back of that, went into back to my amateur team at Leigh East, and then I got picked up to go play at Barla, which is like the best amateur kids to represent Great Britain. So yeah.
It's not a bad outcome, mate, is
Exactly that.
it?
Like it was my nan who says I remember ringing her after when I got the release, and she was like, "You don't need to worry. Everything happens for a reason." And I say that every time something bad happens to me, I always think that, and I
Yeah,
always think if I would have got a contract at Warrington, I might have got released the year after. I wouldn't have achieved what I did achieve in the amateur game. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So
It wouldn't
yeah,
have allowed you to do that, would it? It'd have tied
exactly,
you up. Yeah.
exactly.
Do you feel like you went back a better player off the back of that, though, Jack?
Yeah. I went
Yeah,
because the back end. I remember the back end of that scholarship. I was kind of. I knew I weren't going to get a contract, like I said in the last few months. So I was kind of. It became a chore to go to training. I'm like, I'm not enjoying it. I could easily just go and be playing with my mates. I was playing on the weekend for Leigh East and playing sometimes for Warrington. And I was never playing in my position. I always played at nine and playing for Leigh East in my normal position. I was playing well, and um, but yeah, it's I kind of looked at it and thought I just want to go playing with my mates, and that was the best thing for me to go because we went then the I was under 16s then and went straight into under 18s at my amateur team, and we had a big bunch of us who moved up, and we had such a good year that year because I was stepping up in age group, and then yeah, I had a really good year personally as well. I remember.
big difference at that age, though, Jack, innit?
Yeah, massively. Because
Yeah.
I'm coming fresh out of high school. I'm um, looking at some 18-year-olds who have got full of tattoos. I'm like, geez, like it's a big step up.
Yeah, smoking and that.
Yeah. And like I've never been the biggest lad, so I always had to work that little bit harder. But yeah, I really
Yeah.
enjoyed that time.
Like, if you don't mind, mate, how did the Barla GB squad get picked? How does that work? And where do you meet up and where did you go?
Yeah, so we had every year there were trials for Lancashire. We had the Tri Nations then, so it was Lancashire, Yorkshire, and Cumbria. So we always had trials for the Lancashire team, and then I made the Lancashire team, and then we won the series, and then the GB team got picked from all those three. So the best out of Lancashire, best out of Yorkshire and Cumbria. And then obviously I remember getting a letter saying that I'd made the team, and we toured Malta. So that was an unbelievable experience at 17. So
It wasn't the worst places to go than Malta, mate, isn't there?
exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I remember we had a really good team there, and um, we toured Malta. And we played the actual national team. We were 17 at the time. Obviously, they was open age, and
Yeah,
we were so good, and we ended up hammering them on the day. So yeah, we had a good drink after it.
yeah, thank you, did, mate. Thank you, did. So is this all whetting the appetite again?
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. And I set myself a goal when Warrington released me, because at the time I remember I just remembered actually Leigh wanted me to go to the reserve team, and I remember speaking to my mum, and I was like, I've just come from here, I've not really enjoyed it, and Leigh want me to go, and my mum was like, no, don't go there, go back to with your best mates and go and play some good rugby, and that's what I did, and I set myself a goals of making a Lancashire team and then making a GB team off the back of that, and I reached those goals, and then the year after that, Leigh come back, and then I thought,
yeah,
right, I've done it now, and then that's when I started my professional career at Leigh.
yeah. Must be satisfying that, mate. If especially if that was the target for you to succeed and go on and not only make the GB team, but for one play and for
Mm.
two winning helps, doesn't it?
Yeah,
So all
100%.
that must be really satisfying.
Yeah, it was, and it kind of give me that confidence of being all right. I'm not just an average rugby player. I can give a little bit more because growing up, obviously in my area, I'd say I was known as a Jack the rugby player, and
Yeah,
when I was kind of embarrassed when Warrington released me because people knew me as being a player for Warrington, of being a rugby player, and I kind of owed it to myself of having a good year and hitting my new goals, and just I feel like just relaxing kind of thing, and not at such a young age not being so focused on one outcome. And I think going back at 17, going back to my amateur club, that's what it really did to me. We had lads who were either went to college or went to work, and they just come for a laugh. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
yeah, it was a really good time for me.
I think you just rediscovered originally why you played rugby, mate, didn't you?
Mm,
It give you that window to go back and really enjoy it again without having to necessarily worry about results,
yeah.
not worry about contracts.
Mm,
Have a beer with your mates, like go back to just being
yeah.
Jack Hansen. It's not really about Jack the rugby player.
Yeah, exactly. And like no one really bothered. Yeah, we'd want to win like the league or win a cup with the amateur team, but really no one really bothered because you're all best mates. You want to go on a drink after a game, and we love being a part of each other. Um Obviously when I was going to Warrington, you might have not been best mates with everyone there. You'd probably just train, go home, and then play on the weekend, and then go home. Well, when I was younger playing at Leigh East, I'd spend most of my time with them. You know what I mean? So it just really made me love the game and made me feel like I want to do this now. Like I've had the taste of it, it's got taken away from me, and now I've realised I want to do it again.
Yeah. Plus, you can cope without semi or professional rugby
Mm,
league. It ain't.
yeah,
It ain't. You're Jack that likes playing rugby.
yeah,
You're not rugby that has to have Jack.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
Mm,
you can dip in and out, and your life ain't good at end, and you're not going to be like sat at home with nothing to do.
yeah,
You got to go and play for Leigh East, or you got to go and earn your money coaching in
yeah,
primary schools,
yeah,
and or you got to go and play rugby. So
yeah.
it's what fans don't get, do they, mate? You think like because you get released by a club. I think fans are getting better because of like you're more honest about it now. But
Mm.
like you think you just disappear and everything around rugby league's just about the top tier and it's far from that.
Oh yeah, massive. There's especially in the most recent years, like the championship now is a massive competition, and you probably get people like Super League fans who probably never watched the championship. And I know since I've played in the championship, there's been loads of fans who would rather watch the championship because there's every game matters, and I think it's shown this year. Um, it's been so tight at the bottom of the league. Every game matters. It's so tight at the top of the league, and it's. I feel like fans just need to appreciate every single league, and it's the same for League One as well. Like it's
Yeah,
been so tight in League One as well, and um, I know they've got a playoff final soon to try and get into the championship, and I just feel like more money needs to be put in those competitions. So hopefully it does in the few years, and we see a few more teams go full time in that league.
yeah. No, I agree, mate. Because especially in the champ, I'm not gonna lie and say I follow everybody in League One because I don't. But
Mm,
in the champ, it's anyone beats anyone.
it's crazy. Like
Over in Wake, you have pushed the luck a little bit a couple of times this year, haven't they?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
that league is super competitive, mate. Like the
yeah,
playoffs, anything can happen in them playoffs now.
yeah. It's
Like,
crazy.
you only
Like
missed out on the last day, didn't you?
yeah, it's crazy. Like
That's what it. Yeah,
we I think if you look at we must have been second for the longest, and we was solid in that top four, and then like you said, we'd lose to a team at the bottom of the league, and we lost to a team who had nothing to lose on the last game of the year. They were relegated, and um, to be honest, I think we went there with the wrong attitude, and obviously we lost it, and then that's what's caused us not making the playoffs. But it's happened quite a few times. Like you said, there's like your Swintons, your Whitehavens, your Barrows. They've all picked up wins like when on paper they shouldn't do, but that's what makes the championship so good and so good to watch and so good to take part in as well.
to you then, mate, and Leigh comes around. What's the conversation at Leigh? Are you already made your mind up before you have the chat, really?
Yeah, yeah. I remember someone rang me and said we're keen. We're keen for you to come down. It was Paul Anderson, Ando, who's assistant coach at Swinton at the moment. He said, obviously we've been watching you in the amateur game, and we want you to come. And then it was just a no-brainer. So I thought I'm ready to go back into the professional game, and yeah, we had a really good year. Our team were flying, and yeah, unfortunately that year we lost in the grand final, but we had such a good team, and it's just a shame again. Like the team that we had, if it was about now, you'd see loads of players in the game, but back end of that year, the Derek Beaumont cut the funding for reserves because obviously he wanted to kick on with the first team, which is understandable if he spent a lot of money in. What they did with me, I remember the call for a meeting. So a few days after the grand final, call for a meeting for all the players, but they invited me a little bit early and just said, right, we're cutting short the reserves. We're not going to run a team next year, but we want you to stay on. So I signed. I didn't have an agent at the time, so they gave me this contract, and they said, right, we're going to keep you for 2 years, send you out on loan, and then it is what it is. So I signed it, and then they sent me out on loan to North Wales.
Right. So, hometown club, you can't really beat that, mate, can you?
No, it's been it was a dream to play for him. I remember literally my first, so going from my amateur team, my first game for Leigh was a pre-season friendly for the first team. So that was a huge step up, and it was a time when Fui come over, and his first game was in my first game as well. So I've gone from playing across the road at Leigh East, my amateur team, to playing alongside Fui, and who just come from the NRL. So it was a massive standard and a day that I'll always remember. Obviously making a debut for my hometown team at the LSV, it were class.
I imagine it was, mate. And listen, I'm real sentimental, to be honest, mate. I've had a bit them levels. Program would have been kept, jersey would have been kept, the photo with Philly would have been took. Are you like that, mate? Is that something you're into? Do you keep a little bit of something for yourself?
Yeah, to be fair, I thought about it this year. I'd like to have kept a bit more. Because growing up, my dad literally kept everything of his, so I've got all of his old programs. He's got his jerseys. So I wish I've done that, but for the past few years, I've kept um, I kept my jerseys if we're allowed to have kept our jerseys. I've kept most of them, but I try to keep little things like if I'm on the front of the program, I keep my program. But yeah, trying to keep a lot of my jerseys and trying to someday put them all up on the wall somewhere. So yeah, I'm just trying to collect them.
Yeah, I like that. How have you been with injuries, Jack?
Yeah, so my first, like, it's not like a really bad one, but my major one, like growing up, I had no injuries, and all my time through Swinton didn't really have bad injuries. But I did my knee last year, which was my MCL. So I did that in the Challenge Cup in the Sid all away of all games, like a professional team going to an amateur team, and we played at Sid All as well. So it was just a place I just didn't want to be, and someone come straight through my knee, and I did my MCL. So I was out for 6 or 7 weeks, and this year I did another ligament in my knee. I did my PCL, so that was against Wakey this time. So I'm touch wood. I've not had serious ones, but like the longest I've been out for is 6 or 7 weeks. So
Yeah, not bad going because you're in the thick of the action, mate, aren't you? And
exactly,
I've
yeah.
no doubt you get a bit of treatment once the ball's left your hands now and
That,
then.
yeah.
Yeah, so you've
They're
been
trying to
quite
look
lucky.
after us. They're trying to look after us, but they still get through.
Yeah, no, no, it has got better actually, mate, and it like
Mm.
some of it's a bit daft, but
Yeah, like
also you don't want someone flattening you for nothing either, do you?
yeah, exactly. There's been some times where you think, is that really a penalty? Has he just brushed them? Like, I think kick pressure. I don't think you can do kick pressure anymore because if you touch your halfback, like as a halfback, if you feel touch, you're going to go down because you're going to get a penalty. You know what I mean? It's something that I think that they've got to look at this off season and see what they can do. because obviously at the start of this year it was hectic. Like literally everyone was off, so they've looked at it a little bit, but I still think there's a bit of work.
No, there is, mate, definitely. So when the North Wales Crusaders loan come, did you get an option, Jack, of loan clubs? Did they have any agreements with anyone in place that, i.e., North Wales, that you had to go to?
So yeah, so they, I just to be fair, looking back, I just feel like they wanted to keep me, and they knew I needed to play. So I didn't have an agent at the time, so they just spoke as coaches, and Anthony Murray at North Wales took me on board, and um, it was such a good coach for me personally. He knew he was from Leigh himself, so he knew a little bit about me. He knew my dad, so I think that was the best place for me because um, I think he was a nine halfback, so it was a perfect move for me. And then I've
Yeah,
gone from playing in reserves where people similar age to you might get the odd um, late 20s or 30-odd year old. And I've gone from that straight into League One where
man's
it's
rugby, mate, and
yeah,
yeah,
full of like really big men and people who have played Super League in the past. So yeah, it was a massive step up for myself, but one I really enjoyed.
yeah. So what was it like there, mate? Did you get a few games under your belt and quite
Yeah,
a bit
mate.
of experience?
Yeah, I played quite a lot to be fair. I think the person in my position, it was a tough time for the club actually. I think they nearly went into administration, so a lot of players left. But looking back, it was a good thing for me because my position was free, so I went straight into the team. So I played a lot. I can't remember how many, but I'd say I'd play 85% of the games that year.
Not a bad effort, that, mate, especially on loan, is it?
Exactly, and I knew that year was just all about playing. And but yeah, it was a really good year with a lot of good players and a lot of good lads in that team.
Yeah. Oh, that's not bad going at all. And if nothing
Mm,
else, mate, you learn like the intricacies, don't you? You can play pattern rugby everywhere. You've grew up with pattern rugby because of the standards you've been playing.
mm,
But until you've got a defence in your face and not a tackle back, you never truly know whether your lead runner's a great
yeah,
option or an out the back's the option or bringing your full
yeah,
back in, splitting fields. So
yeah.
it's probably developed you twice as much as you've been developed before, really.
Yeah, 100%. Because, like I said, I've gone into men's rugby, and little things that might have worked in the amateur game or in the reserve game wouldn't work at that standard. Like I've got people who might do inside pressure, people who don't clock off. You know what I mean? Who've come from really high standards and but might be going to the back end of their career, and that just it made me such a better player playing at that standard rather than going to another reserves. I was very grateful that I went into the men's game.
Yeah, I bet you was. And you know when you first see your jersey, mate, and it's got Hansen on it, it's that class that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It was something that obviously every kid grows up wanting, and yeah, I was no different. And when I first seen it, it was like gives you goosebumps. So yeah, I don't have that
the
jersey
class
to
that.
this day, but
Yeah.
I think I had to go to the sponsor. But yeah, it was a good one.
I bet it was, mate. I bet it was brilliant. So what's the chat after that? Is it to go back to Leigh and compete for a spot or
Yeah, that was the ideal plan. I remember going into that back end of that year and thinking, right, I wanna try and get into this Leigh team, and I want to try. They were full time at the time, and I thought I'd love to go full time, and even if I don't play most of the games, just being in that environment, and it was at a time where Leigh were just about cementing their own and being like a really top championship side and touching against Super League teams. And I thought I want to be a part of that. And I remember because obviously I didn't have an agent, I had to speak to Leigh myself. And I'm like, well, what's the plan here? I've got another year. What do you want to do? And I remember the head coach at the time rang me and he was like, well, there's nothing here for you. Like I wasn't on contracted money anyway.
yeah,
I was only on bonuses, game bonuses, and um,
virtually like pay as you play?
yeah, pay as you
Yeah,
play. So
yeah,
if I didn't play at North Wales, I weren't getting paid. So Luckily at the time I was living at my mum, so I didn't really need to think about money then, and I was in university, but I just wanted that shot at Leigh and to prove myself. And I remember they rang me and just said, "There's nothing here for you next year, so if you want to go look elsewhere, you can do." And that off season, probably to this day, it was probably the toughest time that I've had in my rugby league journey. I remember going out for a meal with my missus, and I was never off my phone because I was messaging loads of different coaches in League One and in Championship saying I'm available. I'd come for nothing. I'll come for a trial, and no one was even emailing me back.
But not even just for the trial, mate. No.
No, nothing. And
Yeah.
people had. I remember. I got in touch with Ryan Briley. He was playing at Leigh at the time, and he gave me a bit of advice. And he spoke to a few coaches, and they got back to him, and he kept on sending me the responses, and the responses was always like, oh, "He's a good kid, but we sorted." So yeah, that was a really tough time, and then I ended up, and this time as well, Muzza, our coach at North Wales, was leaving. So and then I just didn't know what to do. They brought a new coach in, and luckily the board members at Crusaders, I'm friendly with one of them, and he said, right, you can stay with us. But yeah, when the new coach came in, he took my squad number off me. He gave me the last squad number. So straight away I knew I'm fighting uphill battle here.
Which already makes an hard situation twice as tough.
Exactly, and it was obviously it's a new coach, and they were bringing in his own players, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like I was even contemplating going back playing amateur. I was speaking to my missus, and she was one who actually said, "Don't do that. Just keep playing, playing whatever games that you're playing. If you don't get picked, it is what it is, and we'll work on it." And like I said before, like, everything happens for a reason, and
It does, mate. Definitely does.
and yeah, that was although it was a tough start to the year. I ended it well.
Yeah. So how would you cope with all that, mate? When you touched on it then and I bypassed it, so I apologise. But you're doing uni.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
how
it
do
was
you
tough.
do that?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was tough. Luckily, like at the time, obviously I didn't have a job at the time, so I would just focus on uni and then try and focus on rugby as well. And my rugby wasn't going to plan because obviously I weren't one of the main players there. Um, but yeah, I just did. I was just surrounded with good people. And like I said, with my missus helping me in that tough time. Again, I'm very grateful for that. And it could have ended in a wrong idea of playing back amateur or not even playing at all kind of thing. I could have been one of those who was lost to the system.
Yeah. No, it's mad, isn't it, mate? And like again, it's life's a matter of opinions, unfortunately, in
Yeah,
sport, isn't it?
yeah, and
Like
then
just one person's demise and leaving and someone coming in just puts you right like snake and ladders right back to
yeah, it is, and I feel like um that time it was that, and it's just crazy because there'll be so many good players, and just because one person doesn't like them, or not personally, or doesn't rate them as a player, don't suit their system, they could just leave. And again, I think that's what touching on rugby league fans that, and in any sport as well, that's what fans don't see. They might see, oh, players just going to leave, but they might not have seen they were pushed out the door. Do you know what I
they'll
mean?
never see that, mate, and they'll never, if they're probably honest, I think at least 50% wouldn't believe that either.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy. Like, yeah, some players don't suit systems, so they want to go to a coach who do, and yeah, it's a hard part of the sport. That.
Yeah. Did you realise how resilient you was, Jack?
Yeah, because like going back to when I got released from Warrington, I think
Yeah.
that helped me massively, and um, I just knew I'm on the track of going where I want to go. if you know what I mean. Like, and
Yeah,
I
it's just a
know
speed bump, mate.
it is, yeah. And I knew something was around the corner, and I was just waiting for that opportunity because I think it's been probably the story of my career so far is just trying to get an opportunity somewhere and getting that coach at a top level to try and back myself because I've had coaches in the past who probably overlooked me, and I've had coaches which we'll touch on in my next move who who really give me that opportunity and believed in me, which why is what I need because growing up I wasn't there was always there was always better players than me, but I just needed that coach to to back me.
Yeah, a bit of belief, mate. So
Mm.
let's touch on that next phase then. And was it Swinton? And
Yeah, Swinton. Yeah,
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 how did that move come about, mate?
yeah. So it was a funny one. Obviously, I weren't enjoying my time at Crusaders in that second year, and I knew that I was good enough to play at this level and in the championship.
Yeah,
And like I said, I just needed someone to back me. And it was at a time where I think Swinton was going through a tough time with the board members. I think John Duffy left and Stu Littler got the job. And one of my mates, who's the assistant coach at Widnes, Thomas Wood, he um, he actually rang me and said Stu Littler's looking for some players to take to Swinton with him, and I know you've not been enjoying it, so do you want me to pass your name on? And I said 100%. So yeah, so that's how that come about. And I spoke to Stu. He said it was a back end of the year and they were struggling. They needed to win a certain amount of games, and he said, we want you to come in. You might not play a lot, but we want you to come in and get in this environment for the year after." So yeah, I spoke to the Crusaders coach at the time. I said, I want to leave. I'm not enjoying it. And then he just said, right, sweet. Well, I'll get you a release. And then went to Swinton.
yeah. Because what fans probably don't get as well, mate, is some clubs withhold your edge, don't
Yeah,
they?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So it stops you playing altogether.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah,
They just think you're being funny, which is what you touched on before. But
mm,
actually, they're withholding you, and they're not going to go out and say, "Oh, we've released, for
yeah,
example, Jack, but we're
mm,
not going to let him play for anyone else either." They're
yeah,
never going
yeah,
to say that, are they?
yeah. So when I spoke to the coach, I kind of knew I wasn't in the plans because he didn't really make a fuss of it. He just said, right, okay, I'll speak to the board members and we'll sort your release out. And then got the release and then signed at Swinton literally the day after, I think it was.
So, and was it just about rediscovering your passion again, mate, and finding your feet
Yeah,
again?
yeah. I
Yeah,
just like I said, I want to be involved in a team that resembled my team down at Leigh East, where I'm in the bunch of best mates, and one of the main players where I can have my say on the team. And going to Swinton was a perfect move for me because they was coming off the back of financial problems, and they I think on the final day they stayed in the championship, so I had a full preseason behind my belt to then play my first games in the championship. And Stu Littler is played a massive part in my career because he's been a coach where he was probably the only coach um, who understood me and put me kind of in the deep end of being a seven in the championship team. And I probably looking back, I probably weren't ready for it, but it was a very good time for me because I'm going into a team where I've got seasoned pros. Like you got like your Andy Braychecks in there and your Josh Barlows, and I'm coming into this team as a young kid. I think I were 20 or 21 at the time, and I'm trying to tell these guys what to do. So yeah, it was a really tough time, but I gained some really good relationships there and people that I'm still like best mates with today. So I really enjoyed my time there.
I don't know if you know, mate, but there was some real big reviews about you, wasn't there? Marshalling the team around, and
Mm.
people were starting to know who Jack the rugby player is.
Yeah. I think
And
that's
probably wanting to know who Jack the person was then, mate, as well.
yeah. That's what I need. I knew I was like I said. I've loved the game, and um, I knew I just needed my opportunity, and
Yeah,
Swinton was my opportunity at that at good level, and championships a really really good level. And I think it gets looked down on a few times by obviously Super League, but I just needed that opportunity in that championship team where I'd be playing against at the time. There was a few full time teams, obviously Leigh, Toronto at the time, and Toulouse, and I wanted to play against those type of teams, and
yeah,
yeah, it just probably created that name for myself.
yeah. So a couple of things, mate. Haywood Road has definitely changed since I played against Sale FC there.
Yeah.
Two is, how was Toronto away?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
And
yeah,
three is it is it about getting into the attritional stuff, playing back to back, week on week
mm,
against that quality opposition? So
yeah,
sorry to have bombarded you, mate,
yeah. So
but they're just the 3 points that I'd like you to chat about.
yeah, so yeah, Haywood Road is probably one of the last proper like old fashioned stadiums, and yeah, I had some good memories there, and probably this time, well, the start of pre-season and playing those early games, it's a mud bath, and
Yeah,
then in the summer the pitch is really hard, but like we learned how to play on it, and it was good for us. Like teams didn't want to come to us because it was a rugby union team, a rugby union pitch, and it was massive, but that suited us the way we played. Um, but yeah, it's a place I like. I enjoy going back and playing to this day, and but yeah, it's a really special place for me that, and yeah. And what was the second one? Sorry.
so the second one, mate, how was Toronto away?
Oh, Toronto, that was unbelievable. Luckily, I've got there twice. Obviously,
Right.
in that first year, they didn't make Super League, so they stayed in the Championship. And really, I was buzzing so because we got another trip.
Yeah, bet you was.
Um, but yeah, it was just different, and I really feel like rugby league has dropped the ball with that one because it was huge.
I believe
Um,
so, mate. Yeah, like they
like
loved it, didn't they?
yeah, like going over there, like they packed the stadium, and back then, like no championship team did that. Yeah, this year you probably see Wakey, you've got 5,000, but Toronto did that back in um 2019, 2018, 2019, and they probably didn't know what was going on, their fans, but they were loud, and
Yeah,
after the game, they had they wanted pictures with you. They chat about you. They'd be interested in the game, interested in you, and I absolutely loved it. And their stadium, Lamport Stadium, was like in the middle of the city, so you're looking up, and there's just massive buildings everywhere, and it was such a unique experience, and I'm glad I got there, and yeah, it's like I said, I feel like they've proper dropped the ball with it. Like,
yeah,
I don't think, other than the fans outside of Toronto, I think those are the only people that had bad words about it, just because it was something new and it wasn't on the M60. It wasn't a team on the M62. You know what I mean? And it just
yeah,
needed that backing, which it did have in the first few years. And obviously, because of COVID, the owner pushed back, and I think I think they had a vote, didn't they? And all the Super
yeah,
League teams voted against them. And but yeah, it was such. I loved it, and still to this day, it's probably one of the toughest. They I didn't play against the last league team that was in Championship because I was in League One with Swinton, but that team for me was one of the best teams I've played against. They were so good, especially in that second year with when McDermott was involved.
yeah.
They were so structured and so workmanlike, and yeah, it was such a good team.
Okay. And then playing week in, week out at that level, mate. Is that where you truly learn like the authenticity of rugby league?
Yeah,
Like how to play certain teams, like the Batley pitch for an instance is like a
yeah,
big talking point, isn't it?
yeah,
And things like that. You learn the proper dark art.
yeah, massively. And Stu was really good at that. Like I gone from North Wales where we didn't really do video in that second year, and then I've gone to Swinton where we'd have before we went out and trained, we'd speak about the team that we're going to play, and as a halfback, it proper like made me look at the game in a different way and looking at not just making things up on the weekend. And like you said, going back to back every single week playing top championship teams, like it was a really tough year for us, but I really enjoyed it because I went from playing in League One where you'd play every other week and you'd have weeks off, going straight into Championship where you'd play 20 or touching 30 games back to back to back. And like I said, I got trusted that year, and I think I possibly played every game. I maybe missed one game that year, which is massive. So yeah,
Yeah.
it was a big difference to what I was used to.
Right, and how come the Swinton spell come to an end, mate? What was the chat there, and how did Sheffield come around? And
Yeah, so I've spent 5 years there. We I came close to leaving in Stu's last year. So Stu got sacked. Like us as players, we was at fault. We had a really tough year that year, and we come off. I think it was we had 2019 season where we had our best ever season. I think we just missed out on the playoffs, and we never. I think our budget was at the lowest, and we were such a close team. Talking about best mates, we were definitely best mates. Obviously, went into 2020. Obviously, with COVID, we only played a few games, and then in that 21 season, I just think we didn't. I don't know if it was because of that back end of the year where people was unfit, or sorry, back end of the 2020 year. Obviously, it was really hard to get back into the swing of things, and I know personally, I wasn't at my fittest, and yeah, I just really struggled mentally as well that year because obviously I was a halfback, and when we lost, it was to the fans, it was my fault, and probably rightly so. Obviously, a halfback is a massive position in rugby league, and you are paid to win the game, and if you don't win, it's kind of your fault. And it kind of got to me that year, and
it's hard to play on the back foot, though, Jack, innit?
yeah, massive. And that year, I think we're playing on back foot most weeks, and it were really tough, and like mentally, it took a toll on me. And I wasn't good at being good. I wasn't like being with my missus. She probably didn't want to be around me because I was always in a mood because I wasn't playing well, and I was reading comments online, which obviously it's looking back now I should have never have done. And I nearly left that year. I nearly signed elsewhere in the championship, but the assistant coach at Swinton, Alan Coleman, who's the witness coach now, he took over, and he was always in that tough year. He knew how to coach me. He always had his arm around me, and he knew he just needed to get into my head to reassure me. And then when he got the job, I think we had about 4 games. We was already relegated, and we had about 4 games left. And I finished the season off really well, and it was a big part of him why I stayed. And I could have gone elsewhere for more money at the time, and in that 21 season. But I chose to stay with Alan because I knew it would be better for me. Obviously, we've just been relegated from Swinton, so that was a bit of bitter taste for me as being the halfback. So I thought, I'm not going to leave. Then I want to get back into the championship, have a really good season, and then I'll have a look elsewhere, and that's what I did. And I got an agent a few years before that, and the year before that, and he was looking elsewhere for me, and he spoke with Sheffield and to see if they was keen, and they was. So yeah, I got that deal sorted, and that was around about halfway through that year of 22 when I was in League One, and that was probably the best year of me personally. On like looking at stats, was probably the best year of my career in that last year at Swinton, and I owe a lot of it to Alan Coleman and Tom Wood there because they knew how to coach me. They knew my weaknesses, they knew my strengths, and they knew if they told me something, I'd put it into the game, but on my twist of things as well. Like I had a lot to say in our attack there, and I really enjoyed it. But coming to the back end of my time at Swinton, I just knew it was time for a change. Um, I think it was my fifth year that year, and I just thought I don't want to go back into the championship and be fighting in that relegation again. I felt like it was a right time for me to move on, looking looking up the table and try and get in a really good system, a really professional club, and that's what I did at Sheffield.
Nice PT wearing all over you being from Leigh, mate.
I know, but
Yeah,
yeah,
he's most of his lads are Leigh lads, aren't they, there,
mm,
Pete?
yeah,
Yeah,
but yeah, I'm with Jimmy at Show Me the Money, and he's been a massive help for me. And again, like I can speak to him whenever. I had an agent before Jimmy, but we didn't. Um, it was always a case of at the end of the season, then find out. But with Jimmy, I speak to him all the way through the year. He
I'm
kind of make
active.
yeah, and he kind of makes me feel like I'm kind of like his only player, if you get what I mean. And
It's
yeah,
good then, isn't he?
yeah. So like I've
Yeah.
got a really good relationship with him, and he's been a massive part of my career recently. And the times when I've doubted myself, he's just reassured me. So yeah.
Yeah. And fundamentally, mate, well, both of you, but you're sorting yourself out for the year after. Probably give you absolute freedom and license to go and play, mate, didn't it?
That was it, mate. It was around about halfway through the year, and I had a tough conversation with Al at the time, and I remember pulling him after training and telling him I was decided to leave. This was before um, the playoffs, and I just said I want to get it out now. I'll obviously let you know that I'm leaving, and yeah, it was a really tough conversation because I really look up to Al, and he's been such a huge part in my career, and to get me back where I kind of dropped my standards back in 21, and he got me into the player that I was, and it was hard to leave him, but I had to do what was best for me.
Of course, mate, of course. So, walking in at Sheffield, mate, how's it been since you've been there and
Yeah,
what got you up there?
yeah. So chuck myself right into the deep end again. I've gone from, like I said, at Swinton, I was probably the main player there, or one of a bunch of main players. Like I said, we're my best mates, and I've gone probably the furthest Yorkshire team with only people I've played against. Like I've never played with them before. I don't have personal relationships with them, but I knew for me, I could have easily stayed at Swinton and probably earned a little bit more money there. And but I thought I want to do different things in the game. I want to try and be the best player I can be and reach the top level. And my move to Swinton was purely sorry, my move to Sheffield was purely because of that. I
Yeah,
wanted
I
to
love that,
be
mate.
I
Yeah,
wanted yeah, I wanted to be in a professional environment. Not saying that Swinton wasn't, because it was. I just
yeah.
wanted a different I just wanted something.
Challenging
Yeah,
area, everything. Yeah,
yeah, like I went there like the from when I went there, they wasn't the club that they probably are now. Um, they hadn't reached playoffs, so I wasn't guaranteed like a really good team. I just believed in Mark Aston when I had a meeting that I could really be part of something there.
yeah. No, like that, mate. And like you said, you're still developing, and you found a club that is developing as well, with
Mm,
probably similar ambitions,
yeah, yeah,
playing
and
on probably a little budget
yeah, that
just
was
to
it.
go and have a go. Yeah,
Yeah,
sorry,
that was
mate,
it.
just to go and have a go.
Yeah, that was it. Like I knew if I was going to Sheffield, there's some absolute like unbelievable pros there. Like have won grand finals. They've won. They've been in Challenge Cup finals, and they've been there and done it. I knew if I surround myself with people like that, it's only going to make me look better. And that's
Yeah.
what I did when I went to Sheffield. I've just learned from everyone here, and I've absolutely loved my time there.
So, talk to us about some of the standout moments so far, Jack, in and what you see the future looking like for yourself in Sheffield.
Yeah, so obviously in my first year was just to play as many games as possible. Probably the people who didn't know me and probably just looked on the outside probably looked at it as a strange move because I went from being the main player at Swinton to going into a team of Sheffield who's got Anthony Thackeray, they signed Corey Aston at the time, and they've got Isaac Farrell, and I'm going in there as a fourth choice halfback. But I just knew once I get into that team, I knew people know I deserve to be there, and again that was a massive challenge, and that's what excited me to going into a new system and playing in different positions, which I have done in a few years. But a few of the good moments for me, obviously, we made the playoffs last year, and we played some really top games. Obviously, playing Wembley this year. We played Wigan. Obviously, growing up supporting Wigan, we played Wigan at the DW. So yeah, it's just been a really good 2 years. So yeah.
Brilliant, mate. And future ambitions, what are they?
So for me, like I've still got the ambition. Like I want to play Super League. I'm not going to beat around the bush. Yeah, some people just say that they're happy where they are, but like when I was in League One, I wanted to move up to Championship, and I did that, and I feel like I've solidified my place in the Championship, and like I want to play Super League, and going back to having coaches that back me. I just need that coach to back me. But I've still got a few years before that happens. Hopefully, I'm signing elsewhere for the next few years. But for me, this time is to solidate myself as a top Championship halfback, because I feel like when people talk about the halfbacks of the Championship, probably my name is in there, and probably rightly so, because I've played in losing teams in the Championship. In the past 2 years, I've probably been a utility, but I know what I can do, and I just need a club, I need a coach to back me to make me like make myself be right. Do you know what I mean? And this next few years is massive because, like, I'm 27, going on 28 next year, next season, and I'm at the age now where I've got to be taking teams on my shoulders, and I want that pressure on me, and I want to be known as one of the top halfbacks, and then hopefully one day to play Super League.
Yeah. Are you able to say where you're going, mate, or is it not? No.
It's not been announced. Not been announced just yet.
So not a problem. Not a problem. So I've come to that time of the chat, mate. I've got a couple of daft questions for you.
Yeah,
But
nice.
the best of luck with your move, by the way, mate. And I've no doubt, given the right environment and opportunity, you'll thrive in it, mate.
Yeah, hopefully.
So just keep doing what you're doing and keep enjoying it. So, any pre-match superstitions, mate?
Yeah, I'm pretty weird in that sense. My missus laughs at me. So I've always had this, going back to being a United fan, I've always had this same towel since being young. It's been a United towel. And I've always had to take that in my rugby bag all the time. And I tried to come away with it, come away from it. And I did that. Last time I did that, I did my knee. So last time I didn't take my United towel, I hurt my knee and I got injured for a few weeks. So that's going to be my main priority now, going into games. And then the day before, I always eat the same stuff. I always try to make sure I have my a high carb based meal. So yeah, and then I always have my notebook that I take with me and write in my notes, whether that's a game plan or something individual that I need to do. So yeah, so I've got quite a few things, but yeah, it makes me play how I do.
Yeah. Right, mate. So this next word I'm going to say, the definition's different for everybody. You'll see it different to how I see it, vice versa. So toughest player you played with and against.
Yeah, so the top, yeah, so everyone's different, but like for me, being a halfback, I played against the Toulouse when Toulouse was at the peak for me. Like your Jonathan Fords and Mark Corella, they were so good players. Like I we Jonathan Ford just felt like he had so much time on the ball, and it's hard to explain to a non-rugby person what I mean by that. But I just feel like no one could go near him, and
The
he
game slowed down, but it
yeah,
wasn't. Yeah,
he was so good, and Corella was very similar. He was so good coming off the back of him, and so quick. But when we played again, I was touching on that Toronto team. I was up against on my side Ricky Latelli, and he was classy. You could tell he was NRL standard. Um, but yeah, toughest that I played with. Uh, Again, different types of players, but for me, um, I love playing alongside Rodri Lloyd. Obviously playing at Widnes at the moment. He was the back row I've played with the most. He was so good on and off the field for me, and he'd do a lot of stuff what the odd fan wouldn't see. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, some really good players that I've played with, but I'd say Rod. Yeah.
your favourite away ground, mate? And you can't
Uh,
say Wigan because that's technically your own ground because you
yeah,
support
yeah.
them.
Obviously Toronto. It was just a crazy experience. Yeah. Other than Toronto, I can't try to think with like Wembley, Wembley.
Yeah, that's a
Yes.
shout. I'll give you
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
mate.
yeah.
Yeah.
Wembley this
Do you
year.
like? Do you prefer the newer ones, or do you like an old-fashioned
Um,
ground?
yeah, I like playing at York. York's a really
Yeah,
good ground to play at. But I prefer where there's a lot more fans. Obviously, York have that one stand, but when you've got fans all the way around. But yeah, obviously Wembley's right up there. It's probably the best place that I've played.
it's a great shout. That you can't be out there.
Yeah. But yeah, like I love playing at the Shea as well at
Yeah,
Halifax. Um, and yeah, so yeah, those are a few.
right, mate. And hindsight's a wonderful thing. Before I say this next one to you, which we found out with the Warrington thing and
Mm.
your journey so far, mate. But if you could go back and tell a younger Jack something, what would it be?
That that everything happens for a reason. Like I've said it quite a lot throughout this talk, but it truly does. Like if I get an academy contract at Warrington, I might not be where I am today.
You
And
definitely wouldn't be.
yeah, like so, yeah, like if I can go back to that young Jack being at Warrington where he's just been released, I'd just look at him and just say like, you're going to enjoy the journey. So yeah, everything
Just
happens
where
for a
it meant
reason.
to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And say you've had a few beers, mate, or you're out with the missus, microphone ends up in your hands.
Mm.
What karaoke song are you giving us?
Um, Erasure, Erasure. What's Yeah, I'm not a massive karaoke fan, but yeah,
I'm a shitbag, mate. I have to be bladdered or
yeah,
but like start something that's popular and just fade back.
yeah, yeah. A little respect to Asia. That I've sang that before. But yeah, it's got to be. I've got to have a few pints before.
Yeah, I have. Mate. Well, more than a few, but yeah, I get what you're saying. You're a
Yeah,
pro. You see, you have to do it proper, don't
yeah,
you?
yeah.
If you're willing to, mate, I appreciate you about to hit the peak of your career. But a
Mm.
1 to 13 that you played with so far,
Yeah, I thought about this. I've been lucky enough to play with some top players, and um, for me, I've got a fullback. My current fullback, Matty Marsh. I've
yeah,
played with him just this year, and I played against him quite a lot, and I've not realised how good he was. I played with other good fullbacks, Dan Abram, my last year at Swinton. Really enjoyed playing under it with him. Tommy Johnson at Crusaders. But yeah, I put Marshy at fullback. My wingers. I think this is a position where I've been very lucky to play with some proper good players. I've played with Rob Massam at Crusaders, um, Lippy at Swinton, but for me, and for me, I've got to go with Mike Butt, who's at Widnes at the moment. He's probably one of those players like fans don't see the work he does. He'd probably take over 20 carries for you, and as probably but with the middles probably love playing alongside. Well, I know that they do because he'll take the tough carries. And I've got two wingers who I play with at the moment, in Ben Jones Bishop and Matty Dawson, who are very similar. And I don't. Oh, I'm very close to Dawes, but I think I'm gonna go with Bish. Ben Jones Bishop. He's won everything, and he's probably the biggest professional I've ever met. Like he'd be at training early, he'd be stretching when he doesn't really need to do that type of stuff. Like he's been there and done it, and he's in the last 2 years at Sheffield, he's won so many games for us where he'll catch the ball on our line and go 100 meters.
Not
Um,
done it any money. He has, yeah.
yeah, he's so good. But yeah, he just gets in there over Doss. My centres would be Chris Wellham. Um,
Yeah.
Again, like he's been there and done it. He's class. And again, James Glover, who I play with at the moment, I'd probably put him in there. But yeah, I've played with some good centres. Liam Forsyth, who came from Wigan to us at Swinton.
I remember him. He played a little bit at, you might not have heard of him, Liverpool St Helens or Rugby
Yeah,
Union
yeah,
team.
yeah, yeah,
I think
yeah,
he done a bit of that, didn't he?
yeah. So he were really good, but he kept on coming on Joe Reg, and then we eventually signed him, and unfortunately he got a bad knee injury, so he couldn't really get back to his best, and he ended up retiring. So I didn't play a lot of rugby with him, but he's definitely a mention. And my halves, I think for me as halves, you need to have that connection. And the person I've had the best connection with is Rob Fairclough at Swinton. We was really good mates off the field, and he was kind of the joker of the team, and he'd get on people's nerves like really bad, and especially the middles. So like he'd be kicking on third tackle, and middles would be
You
spraying
don't
him.
need that when you're blowing, do you?
Yeah, exactly. And I just knew how to talk to him, and he tried to get under my skin a few times, but he knew that he couldn't get under my skin because I just brush it off, and I think that's what attracted him to me. So we had a really good connection, and yeah, he'd be my six. And if I'm going for another one, I go for Anthony Thackeray. Again, looking back at, I played against him quite a few times, but I've not realised how good he was on it.
He was
He,
classic with the stacks, mate.
yeah, he again, it probably like Super League fans don't wouldn't know who he is, but he's probably one of the best championship players to have played, and to have been with him for the last 2 years. I've definitely learned loads of him. Like the biggest thing for me that I've taken away with him is being in the picture. If you look at a break, Fax is always there, and he's one of the top try scorers in public championship. So he's been really good, and again he's carried the Sheffield team for like long before I was here. So he's been outstanding. Going into my middles, my 8 and 10, for me, Gav Benyon, who's at Swinton at the moment. When
He
he
signed for us, hasn't he?
I think so. I think I'm not
Thank you.
100%. But
Yeah.
when he was the first big signing when we was at Swinton in that 2019 season. He came from Salford, um, and he was so good. He single handedly won us a lot of games that year just because of the physicality of him, the size of him, and he could match it in the middle. Because like we said before, being in that Swinton team, we was always on the back foot, but that year he got us on the front foot. Um, Lewis Hatton played alongside. He was really good. An absolute workhorse. Well, not as big as Gav, but he'd probably outwork everyone on the team. Um, but for me, I'd probably put Tyler Dickinson, who I play with at the moment. He's a proper professional, and when he speaks, like everyone listens. And I'd love to play a little bit longer with him, but obviously we're not going to do. But I love my time playing alongside him, and someone I really respect. So yeah, he's been really good with me. My nine. I'm gonna go Luke Waterworth, someone who I think um, deserves a shot. He deserved a shot at a lot higher level. Um, Obviously, he came through the Wigan Academy. He was a proper, if you know what I mean, he's a proper Wigan nine. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like really tough. Love defending, kind of like the Mickey Mac role, and I love playing alongside him. He did all your extra efforts. Again, what people might not see. He'll do your kick chase. He'll try and charge the ball down, and his passing was really good. He always knew how I wanted the ball. So yeah, I put him in there. My back rows. My first one would be Rodri. Like I said, he's probably the back row who I played a lot of my rugby with. Looked after me when I first went into Swinton, and I put him as my captain as well. He's been outstanding for me, and yeah, I love playing with Rod. And my other back row is Faz. Um, this last few years, Joel's been really good with me, and I hated playing against him. He was as a halfback, you don't want those back rows to actually like come after you. And I remember playing against Faz, and he always did that. He were really tough. So again, he's a massive leader in that Sheffield team. So yeah, definitely put him in there. My 13, that's a tough one. It's between two players, Louis Brogan and Titus Guaze, who I play with at the moment. Two different 13s. Louis is really quick. He's your the stylish ball playing 13. He's currently at Leigh, and I hope he gets his opportunity in Super League. I know he's played a few games, but I think he'd be a perfect replacement for John Asiata, because I feel like Louis brings that. He's got such good skills for a forward, and Titus, he's got some very good skills, but I think um he's so good at his fitness. He plays 80 minutes most weeks, and um yeah, he's been again playing off the back of the pack I have done at Sheffield. Titus has definitely been in my up there. I don't know who to put in. Depends who we're playing.
Yeah.
If it's if it's a proper dogfight, I'm putting Titus in there. If it's
Yeah.
a sunny day and we want to play a bit more expansive, I'm putting Louis in there.